From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Tuesday delivered a keynote address at the opening ceremony of the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, or APM-CDRR 2024, held at the Philippine International Convention Center, or PICC, in Pasay City. Hosted by the Government of the Philippines in partnership with the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, or UNDRR, the APMCDRR serves as the main platform in Asia and the Pacific in monitoring, reviewing, and enhancing cooperation for the implementation of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030, the global blueprint for preventing and reducing new and existing disaster risks in the world's most disaster-prone regions. The conference brought together governments, intergovernmental, international, national and civil society organizations, the private sector, science, academia, and stakeholder groups to accelerate progress in reducing disaster risk. With the theme, Surge to 2030, Enhancing Ambition in Asia-Pacific to Accelerate Disaster Risk Reduction, the conference aims to provide an important opportunity to review risk reduction efforts, share innovative solutions, and make actionable commitments to accelerate disaster risk reduction by 2030. Let us listen to the speech of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. during the event.
Good morning to you all, and a very warm welcome to the Philippines. We are a nation that is an archipelagic one consisting of over 7,600 islands. And we take pride in our beaches, in our world-class diving sites, our breathtaking landscape. And all this draws visitors from all over the globe. But while nature has gifted us with natural wonders, it also reminds us of its formidable power over and over again. Unfortunately, our beautiful country is located along the Pacific Typhoon Belt, in the midst of the Pacific Ring of Fire. We are visited by more than 20 tropical cyclones and experience around 500 magnitude 4.0 and above earthquakes in 1 year. We also have around 24 active volcanoes. These are compounded by the increasing frequencies of hazards brought about by climate change, which makes the Philippines at risk and in our landscape making our landscape even more complex, our people even more vulnerable. Much has been said about the resilience of Filipino spirit, but let us remember that strength was forged out of adversity over centuries of facing storms and earthquakes, adapting and rising once again with a renewed vision and purpose. Just recently, the southwest monsoon, or habagat, enhanced by Typhoon Gaimi, locally known as Karina, inflicted more than $82 million in agricultural damage. That figure only scratches the surface. The true measure of our losses lies in the human cost, the homes that have been destroyed and have to be rebuilt, the livelihoods that have been lost that may never come back, and the lives irrevocably changed. Resilience and sustainability must underpin the national agenda of our economy. This recognizes that all our efforts in economic planning are fragile in the face of calamities and disaster. For us, the stakes are existential, the consequences generational, and the policy environment increasingly complex. However, this narrative is not unique to the Philippines. Across the Asia-Pacific region, nations like ours grapple with similar trials. We share a common struggle, navigating the balance between continued economic growth and dealing with the ever-present threat of disasters. The Asia-Pacific region also stands as a testament to the unwavering spirit of its people. From the tsunami in the Indian Ocean to Typhoon Haiyan in the Pacific Ocean, from the earthquakes in Nepal to floods in South Asia, our nations have conquered monumental challenges. Still, we remain as the world's engine of growth, steering the global economic recovery in the wake of the pandemic. We must strive to create a future where the need for recovery becomes less frequent, as we lay the foundations for a safer, more adaptive, inclusive, and disaster-resilient region. So as we convene for the 2024 Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, we find ourselves at a critical juncture. With the theme Surge to 2030, Enhancing Ambition in Asia-Pacific to Accelerate Disaster Risk Reduction, we are now called to lead the global effort to reduce disaster and climate risks, protect our people, and build sustainable economies. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030 gave the international community profound guidance in our disaster risk reduction efforts. Our path now is to redouble and to synergize our efforts to accelerate its implementation. It also remains crucial to align our goals under this framework with the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the Paris Agreement. We must harmonize our approaches and pursue meaningful actions under these mandates to secure a sustainable and climate-resilient future. The surge to 2030 involves key steps. We must significantly increase our investments and develop financing mechanisms in disaster risk reduction. Sustained and predictable data and financing would help address disaster risk better. This entails ensuring that developing countries, particularly the least developed countries, landlocked countries, and small island developing states are provided greater access to these resources to advance their policies and build disaster resilience. For our part, the Philippines, as a climate champion, humbly accepts the role as steward of the board of the fund for responding to loss and damage. This reinforces our commitment to improving the board's operations and to contribute to the success of its institutional architecture. We are hopeful for a fund that will benefit climate-vulnerable countries, many of whom are in our region. Equally importantly, we enforce the guidelines on the issuance of green and blue bonds. Our green bond market has been recognized by the Asian Development Bank for its potential to expand even further. Our country's most promising sectors for growth comprise renewable energy, green buildings, sustainable agriculture, and water management. Given our archipelagic nature and the looming threat of climate change, investing in the blue bond market is also essential to ensuring the responsible stewardship of our natural wealth, the safeguarding of our coastal communities, and the sustainable growth of industries like fisheries and tourism. Second, we must embrace inclusion. Disasters disproportionately impact people, and they exacerbate existing inequalities. Building stronger societies requires addressing the needs of the most vulnerable, the very young, the very old, the sick, the indigenous peoples, marginalized communities. We must ensure that every voice is heard and every person is empowered to contribute to disaster risk reduction and receives the assistance that they need if the time comes. Third, we must acknowledge that climate change and disasters are catalysts for human displacement. This necessitates forward-thinking policies that create safe pathways for migration and to support those displaced by disasters so that they can rebuild their lives with dignity and security. On our side, we remain steadfast in empowering our local authorities and working closely with our youth to implement nature-based and ecosystem-centered solutions that not only address their unique challenges, but also honor their local traditions and practices. Fourth, innovation must be at the heart of all our strategies. Advancements in technology, data analytics, early warning systems can revolutionize our disaster preparedness and our response. Fifth, coordination and collaboration are the cornerstones of our whole-of-nation approach. By engaging all of our stakeholders, we ensure that we collectively identify the needs, address the gaps, and anticipate the risks ahead of us. And six, fostering open dialogue is essential in bringing our sectors together, promoting both convergence and coherence in our efforts. As such, we carry out regular assessments, regular critiques, ensuring that our policies on disaster risk reduction remain consistent and effective. And seventh, we place great value on the engagement of our private sector, particularly in advancing investments and practices in environmental, social, and governance areas. Through collaborative research, information sharing, and innovative financing, we continue to strengthen and deepen our partnerships with these key stakeholders. And finally, we must advocate for stronger international legal frameworks that guide disaster prevention and response. The Philippines is proud to lead the initiative towards developing an international legal instrument for the protection of persons in the event of disasters. This endeavor aims to fill critical gaps in international disaster response laws, uphold the rights and dignity of affected persons, establish clearer obligations, and enhance humanitarian coordination. As we chart our course to a more inclusive and resilient Asia-Pacific, let us draw inspiration from the stories of resilience that are embedded in our region, from communities that rebuilt after Typhoon Haiyan, to cities that fortify their infrastructure after earthquakes, to grassroots organizations that equip citizens with life-saving skills. We are surrounded by many good examples of what is attainable when we act with foresight, determination, and purpose. And finally, this conference presents us with a grand opportunity to send a powerful message to the world. The Asia-Pacific is not only prepared to overcome the trials of tomorrow, we are also ready to lead in disaster risk reduction and climate action. As you take part in this important conference, I encourage everyone to experience the beauty and the culture of our country. You will soon discover that the strength of our nation lies not only in the efficiency of our policies, but also in the indomitable spirit of our communities and the innate warmth of our people. I wish you a fruitful and inspiring confidence. Thank you all very much.
You just heard Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday evening participated in the 2024 Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference for Disaster Risk Reduction, or APMCDRR's Ministerial Dinner, held at the Philippine International Convention Center, or PICC, in Pasay City. In his speech, the President said, the conference came at an opportune time as the Philippines, because of its geographical location, stood on the front line of the climate crisis as the country is exposed to hazards such as typhoons, earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. According to President Marcos, the whole world can count on the Philippines to lead the fight against climate change. Let us listen to the speech of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. during the event.
I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you as we gather here in Manila for the 2024 Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. It is an honor for the Philippines to host this gathering of experts, scientists, policymakers, practitioners, bound together by a common purpose. For many years, the Philippines has stood on the front line of the climate crisis. Our geographical location exposes us to hazards such as typhoons, earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. Each of these challenges has tested the resilience of every Filipino and the strength of our spirit as a nation, as of course it has done to your countries as well. Yes, yet it is through these very trials that we have become more resolute and resolved in advancing data-driven and sustainable solutions to protect the well-being of all our people. This conference comes at a time when our work to implement the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction is more urgent than ever. Here we can learn from each other, strengthen partnerships, identify innovative ideas, and adopt best practices. Our vision is clear: to reduce disaster risks and losses, and in doing so, protect lives, livelihoods, and the social and economic assets that underpin our societies. At the heart of our efforts, all our efforts, is climate change, an issue that we have integrated in our national and regional policies. From investment strategies to policy implementation, disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation and mitigation are now central to how we shape our future. I think it would not be an exaggeration to say that amongst the government workers, whenever there is a discussion or a planning session, there is no longer even a single conversation that we have that does not include an aspect of adaptation, mitigation to climate change. That is how primordial it has become in our everyday lives. However, the increasing frequency and severity of national hazards call for deeper innovation, for closer cooperation, and for sustained commitment from all of us. Through this conference, we are presented with the opportunity to explore new avenues of collaboration, especially in leveraging science and technology to alleviate the impact of climate change and ensuring that disaster risk reduction financing is accessible to all. By harmonizing all of our efforts, I trust we can build an Asia-Pacific region that is truly adaptive, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. To the future that we are shaping through this conference, and I invite you, everyone, to join me for a toast. In pursuit of mitigating disaster risks, where nations rise above adversity, here is to best practices and the lasting and deeper friendship among our country and our people towards a sustainable future where no one is left behind. Cheers.
You just heard Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday had the privilege of speaking with United Arab Emirates or UAE President His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. During the conversation, President Marcos expressed his heartfelt gratitude for the UAE's invaluable support, particularly the aid provided during recent disasters and the generous pardon of 143 Filipinos, which has brought relief to many families. The two leaders reaffirmed the strong people-to-people ties between the Philippines and the UAE and discussed opportunities to further enhance bilateral cooperation in the future. Just recently, the Philippine Embassy in the UAE, together with the Philippine Consulate General in Dubai and Migrant Workers Offices or MWOs in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, assisted the 36 Filipinos who have availed of the UAE Amnesty Program and were successfully repatriated to the Philippines. This is the fifth batch of repatriation flight arranged by the Philippine Embassy and Department of Migrant Workers or DMW since the start of the amnesty program. A total of 236 overseas Filipinos, including overseas Filipino workers or OFWs and minors, have availed of the UAE amnesty program and decided to go home to the Philippines with their overstaying fines waived by the UAE government. The Philippine Embassy is encouraging Filipinos to visit the Philippine Embassy in Abu Dhabi and Philippine Consulate General in Dubai to initiate the process of updating their status in accordance with UAE immigration laws.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Tuesday said that the Philippines and Malaysia have expressed interest in strengthening their collaboration on education and disaster response efforts. The plan for stronger collaboration was raised when President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. met with Dr. Ahmad Zahid bin Hamidi, Malaysia's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Rural and Regional Development at Malacañang Palace in Manila on Monday. In a social media post, the Presidential Communications Office or PCO said, the President and Hamidi discussed how the Philippines and Malaysia can work together to strengthen disaster resilience. Hamidi mentioned a Malaysian special group called Smart Team, which could be sent to the Philippines during typhoons and disasters with the President's approval. The chief executive welcomed Malaysia's very generous offer and hoped it could be done as soon as everyone is ready for that. In a Facebook post, President Marcos said he exchanged views on disaster risk reduction and management and grateful for Malaysia's offer to collaborate in this critical sector for future disaster response and rescue efforts. President Marcos said they also discussed their intent to develop skilled workforces in line with technological advances through technical education. The PCO said the Philippine President and Malaysian Deputy Prime Minister both acknowledge that it is vital to have more technical and skilled workforce to respond to the changing world and usher development. Both the Philippines and Malaysia are member states of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN.
Dateline Malacañang.
Presidential Communications Office or PCO Secretary Cesar Chavez on Monday confirmed that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has accepted the resignation of National Police Commission or NAPOLCOM Commissioner Edilberto Leonardo. Leonardo's resignation was first revealed by NAPOLCOM Vice Chair Alberto Bernardo during a hearing of the House Quad Committee on October 11th. Leonardo, an appointee of former President Rodrigo Duterte, is being linked to the killing of 3 Chinese drug convicts inside a Davao prison facility in 2016 and the assassination of former Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office or PCSO Board Secretary Wesley Barayuga in 2020. He has denied both allegations. Leonardo was appointed by Duterte to NAPOLCOM in February of 2022. He also previously served as chief of the Criminal Investigation and Detection Group or CIDG in the Davao region until his retirement in September of 2020.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Presidential Communications Office, or PCO, on Monday vowed to continue providing accurate and relevant information to the public as it celebrates 82 years of service. In a social media post, the PCO said the agency's commitment remains steadfast to provide accurate, timely, and relevant information that empowers the Filipino citizen. The PCO is in charge of disseminating the government's message to the public, exercising supervision and control over state-owned media entities to spread official messages properly and effectively. It is also responsible for the accreditation and authentication of reporters covering the activities of the President, as well as foreign media correspondents, in line with its primary task to cultivate relations and assist private media entities. The PCO previously went by the agency names Office of the Press Secretary and Presidential Communications Operations Office.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, Malacañang believes that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. would not change his mind on the country's position on rejoining the Rome Statute. This was the statement of Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin following calls on the Marcos administration to submit to the International Criminal Court or ICC floating information from the lower house of Congress in relation to the war on drugs during the past administration. The Rome Statute is a treaty that created the ICC that wants to investigate the alleged human rights violation under the war on drugs of the Duterte administration. Executive Secretary Bersamin underscored that the Philippines will not return to the ICC, adding that the President is not expected to change his mind and now refer the Quadcom matter to the ICC. To recall, the Philippines withdrew its membership from the Rome Statute in March of 2019.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, the Philippines Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, or BIFOR, confirmed that another collision incident happened between the Chinese maritime militia and a Philippine vessel. In a statement, the BIFAR reported that the incident happened last October 11th while BRP Datu Cabaylo and BRP Datu Sanday were conducting a routine maritime patrol. According to BIFAR, the ship CMM 00108 was following BRP Datu Cabaylo and attempted to block its path. And when the Philippine ship slowly made its approach at Pag-asa K4, the Chinese vessel blocked its path, colliding Cabaylo's starboard bow in the process. The BIFAR, however, reported that the Philippine vessel suffered only minor dents. Despite the incident, the BIFAR vessels were able to complete its maritime patrol and safely docked at the Pag-asa sheltered port. BIFAR commended the officers and crew of the BRP Datu Cabaylo as they continued to perform their duty in line with the mandate of BIFAR to uphold Philippine jurisdiction and rights over its territorial waters and exclusive economic zone.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, the Philippines Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, on Monday reported that 4 Filipino crew members on board MV Minoan Courage that was attacked by Houthi rebels while sailing along the Red Sea have returned to the country. According to the DMW, the 4 seafarers arrived at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport, or NAIA Terminal 3 in Pasay City on board Etihad Airways Flight 424. This is the second batch of the 21 seafarers scheduled to return home to the country following the missile attack of Houthi militants on the Greek bulker last October 1st. The DMW said 7 other seafarers have already returned home last October 9th, while the remaining 10 seafarers are expected to arrive within the next few days. Meanwhile, concerned manning agencies have arranged their hotel accommodations while they undergo psychiatric evaluations. The DMW and the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, assured the seafarers that they will receive the necessary assistance from the government.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service is heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.820 MHz, and 12.010 MHz. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel at Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You will be able to hear and view our Filipino and English programs, including news updates here in the Philippines. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our post as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.